This is the Algebra A review for the linear equations test. So we're going to do some slope calculations and some graphing. So I have a straight edge ready. So first, let's start at the beginning, just finding slope using a graph. Now you might remember this right here. So remember, before you worry about the numbers, that if it's going uphill from left to right, it's going to be positive. If it's going down, it's going to be negative. And then if it's just flat, it's going to be a zero slope. And then undefined if it's going to be a vertical line. Okay? So those are the four types of slopes, and it can help you out while you're doing this. So just to start off right away, you can picture this one as being a slope, number one, and falling off a cliff. So you can remember that this is m equals slope equals undefined. So make sure you write it out and spell it correctly. Okay. For number two, you can see that it's definitely going to be positive. Right? So you can even start off just by putting a plus with the fraction and count the rise and the run. So it's up 1 over 1, 2, 3, and 4. So positive 1/4. All right. You can go to number 3. So right away we know this one is negative because it's going down. Right, from left to right it's going down. So we can count the rise, negative 1, 2, 3. Okay, so negative 3. And then the run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and negative 3 over 6. Right, 6 goes into 3 how many times? And be careful, don't say negative 2. Right, you got to divide both sides, or top and bottom, by 3, so you get negative 1/2. So be careful to make it negative 1/2, not negative 2. Okay, so that's just finding slope by using a graph and counting squares. Let's do another method. Remember, we had 3 methods total. Second method was using a table. So very similar, but instead of counting squares, we can just say how far is it from 3 to negative 1. And if it helps, have a number line handy. Put it down here. And you can draw the, let's see here, put 0 here, and negative 1 here, and then we have 1, 2, 3. And then, very similar to the graph, you can just count. Well, from 3 to negative 1, it's going to be negative 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Another way of checking that is just saying, well, 3 minus 4 should be negative 1, and it is. Same thing this way. 2 minus what would be negative 5, and that would be a negative 7. Okay. 2 minus 7 is negative 5. And remember that the slope is going to be rise over run, so it's the y over the x. So we have negative 4 over negative 7. And we can simplify just a little bit because the two negatives will cancel out. So our final slope will be 4 over 7. Okay, you can also do a little check, make a little graph and just estimate 2, 3 and negative 5, negative 1. And you can kind of count that this is up 4 and to the right 7. So you'll get the same thing as if we were doing slope this way. Okay, let's look at number 5. Do another one. So how far is it from negative 3 to positive 2? Well, it's going to be a positive number, right? So negative 3 plus what is positive 2? And you'll get positive 5. And 4 minus what will be 0? And that's a little easier. 4 minus 4 is 0. Okay, so our slope here will be 5 over negative 4. And usually you don't write the negative on the bottom. You can just put it in the middle. Negative 5/4. And one more like this. Okay. How far is it from negative 4 to positive 2? So negative 4 plus what is equal to 2? And that'd be plus 6. And negative 4 plus what is positive 1? And that would be plus 5. So our slope here is 6 over 5. And nothing to reduce here. So that's our second way of finding slope, is just using a table. Third way was using the slope formula, which just said your slope is going to be y2 minus y1, the distance between the y's on the top, over the distance between the x's. So subtract to find how far apart two numbers are. Okay, so let's try it out. Okay, it helps to start off with the parentheses here, because sometimes negatives will create issues. Okay, so here are our two y values. Let's put those on top. We'll have 3 minus negative 2, and our x's are 10 and 4. 10 minus 4. So right here, right, we have a double negative, so it's going to be 3 plus 2, which is 5. And then we'll have 10 minus 4, which is 6. So there you go, there's your slope there. Let's do a few more. So again, start off with a fraction in just two parentheses with the subtraction between them. Okay, get that down. Alright, we'll have a 2 and a negative 5 on top. So 2 and negative 5 on top. And on the bottom, 4 and 4. Once again, we have two negatives here that make a positive. So we'll have 2 plus 5, which is 7, and 4 minus 4, which is 0. Okay, now, some number divided by 0, does that equal 0? Does it equal 7? Does it equal undefined? You know, what does that equal? So if you can't quite remember what that equals, maybe make a sketch of the two coordinates. So 4 comma 2 be right about here, and 4 comma negative 5 would be right about here. And you can see, well, that's going to be a vertical line. And as long as you earlier are able to remember a vertical line is undefined, right, you'll know down here that, okay, so when the zero's on the bottom, that equals undefined. Remember, we're doing the same problem on this front page. We're just doing it 3 different ways. So we're not going to have a different answer. And we could always take these and graph them, and we should get the same answer as if we graphed them. Alright, so similar here. Okay, let's make our parentheses, fraction. Alright, put the y's on the top. So negative 3 and negative 3. X is on the bottom. Negative 4 and 2. So we have two negatives making a positive again, and this time we have negative 3 plus 3, which is 0. So now this time the 0 is on the top, and negative 4 minus 2 is negative 6. So likewise, if we're not sure what's the answer when there's a 0 on top, you can look at a graph of it, and we'd have negative 3 comma negative 4, that'd be down, negative 4 comma negative 3 down here, and 2 comma negative 3, that'd be down here. So you could see that's a horizontal line, which is 0 fun, 0 slope. Okay, so use the idea of the graph to help you out if you're not quite sure about these two. Someone else might recognize that when these two numbers are the same, that's when you get a 0 on the bottom, because the two x's you're subtracting on the bottom will equal 0, and that's how you get undefined. And likewise, if the two y's are the same, right, that's when you'll get a 0 on the top and your answer is 0. So there's some people that can even look at the very beginning without doing any work here and say, well, the two y's are the same, the answer is 0. Or the two x's are the same, the answer is undefined. And that's always true. Alright, so let's flip it over to the back, do some actual graphing. Here's where you need your straight edge. Alright, so review that the slope is usually called m, the y-intercept is usually called b, so that's what these are right here. Okay, and it's in the format y equals mx plus b. So whatever number is in front of the x, that's the slope, and the number by itself, that's the y-intercept. So for this one, we'll have a slope of 1/3 because it's in front of the x, and the -1 will be the y-intercept. Okay. So remember, that's the y-intercept. This is the y-axis right here, so you have to find -1 on the y-axis. So start at 0, go down 1. There's -1. And then you can go up 1, right 3. Several times. Up 1, right 3. Okay. And of course you can go the other direction as well, as long as it's on the same straight line. Okay. And using your straight edge or just folding the paper to use a straight edge that way. Draw a line all the way through it and put arrows at both ends signifying that the line continues in both directions beyond the size of this particular graph. Okay, let's do number 12, which is a little different. We just got finished saying how the slope-intercept formula is y equals, right? But what if it's x equals, right? So if you ever have x equals, okay, that's always going to be a vertical line with an undefined slope. Okay, so our slope is undefined, UNDEFINED, and there is no y-intercept there. Since it's vertical, you're going to start on the x-axis, since this is x equals. When it was y equals, we started on the y-axis at -1. But if it's x equals, we're going to start at that number. So start at 0 here, and to go x -2, you have to go 2 to the left. And it's a vertical line. So you just draw a vertical line. And you can see it's parallel to the y-axis. And that's why there is no y-intercept here. It never will cross the y-axis. So no y-intercept, and we know from before, from number 1 on the other side, that this is an undefined slope. So link x equals with undefined. Now be careful, don't say undefined and then, well, then you can't graph it. Undefined does not mean no solution. Undefined just means when we calculate the slope, it divides by 0. In mathematics, you can't divide by 0. But we still have a graph. Okay, let's look at number 13. Alright, here you can see we have a slope, right? There's the number in front of the x, so we do have a slope, and I'm going to put the negative just on the top. You can put it on the bottom, so you can do or 5 over -4. Okay, but the negative is on one of them, but not both. It is missing the y-intercept. So if we're missing the y-intercept, we're going to use 0, which means start at the origin, 0, 0. Then you're going to go down 5, right 4. So let's start here and go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's repeat that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And of course we could go, we just did the down and to the right, because the negative is on the 5, we went down, and the 4 is positive, we went right, but if we put it on the bottom, it would be up 5 since this is positive, but then left 4 since the bottom is negative, which works as well, because we can go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and left 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And it's on the same line. So as long as it's on the same line, you know that you're okay. Okay, and of course an arrow at both directions. So if you're missing the y-intercept, it's a 0. Let's go down to 14. Alright, now be careful here because the rule is whatever number's in front of the x is the y-intercept, not the first number. So here you can see what number's in front of the x. And it's not even 2, right? 2 is not the right number. Negative 2 is. So be careful, make sure this is a negative 2. And our y-intercept, the number by itself, this time is 4. So don't go off the order. It's very easy to look at up here and say, oh, the first number is slope, the second number is the y-intercept. Usually that's how we write it, but it's what you're looking for is the x. Where's the x? That's the slope. So we have negative 2 as a slope starting at 4. So let's go to the origin, 0, 0, and go up 4, because this is positive, right? So up 1, 2, 3, 4. And now, don't forget, since this is not a fraction, the slope, let's make it over 1. So it's going to be down 2, right 1. So down 2, right 1. Do it several times. We can go the other direction too. And use your straight edge. And there's your line. Alright, let's look at number 15. So again, a missing number. If we see two numbers like we do here, we know the two numbers have been given to us. But like on 13, we're missing a number. It was the y-intercept. I knew the y-intercept was missing on number 13 because my equation had an x. But this one does not have an x, right? So we know the missing number is the slope, which must mean this number that's actually there is the y-intercept, because there's no x there. So the missing number here would be 0x for the slope. So just by having that x like on number 13 and not having it here on number 15, you can see it changes which number is the slope, which number is the y-intercept. And don't forget, the slope is 0 fun, is horizontal. That's a horizontal. You might remember that because there's an O in the word horizontal, kind of like the same shape as a 0. Okay, so we're going to start at positive 3 on the y-axis, and that's going to be a horizontal line. And lastly, what number is in front of the x here? Right, you just see a negative sign, right, which stands for negative 1, which can be written as a fraction, negative 1 over 1. So that's going to be a down 1, right 1. And our y-intercept is the number by itself, which is, again, 4. So let's start at 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And go down 1 and right 1. So down 1, right 1, which is just corner to corner. Of course, we could go the other direction. There we go. So that's our graphing in slope-intercept form. Okay, lastly, last thing we learned this week, which is, what if it's not slope-intercept form? How do we put it in slope-intercept form? So our goal for the last three is just to have it so it's basically like everything else above. We know how to graph when it's in this format, so if it's not in this format, put it in this format first. So the whole idea is y should be on the left, everything else on the right. So like in this here, you can see, well, the y is on the left, but so is this positive 3x. So let's subtract the 3x on both sides. Okay, that's 0. And the only thing left now on the left side is the y equals, just like we wanted. Now put the negative 3x right after the equal sign. That's what we're used to. So once again, we have the slope right next to the x, right? So our slope is negative 3, or negative 3 over positive 1, down 3 and right 1. And we have a y-intercept of positive 3. So start at 3, and let's go down 3 and right 1. Do that several times. And we'll get a nice straight line using your straight edge. Okay. And let's do the next two, same idea. Let's leave that there. We got to get this by itself. So unlike before where there was no number in front of the y here, so we just had to subtract, this time there is a number. So we're going to have to do two steps. Subtract the x and then divide by 3. So let's first subtract the 2x. Okay, just like we did on 17. Right? But we have a 3y left over equals negative 2x plus 6. And since this is multiplication, 3 times y, let's divide by 3 to undo it. Now make sure you distribute this 3 to both. So it's going to be negative 2 divided by 3. So we got negative 2/3 x. But we also have 6 divided by 3, which is positive 2. So you have to divide both of these by whatever's on the bottom. That's the distributor property for division. And of course here we just have y equals. So we have a slope of negative 2/3 and a y-intercept of 2. Okay, so let's start at 2. And we're going to go down 2, right 3. Down 2, right 3, right on the axis. Down 2, right 3. A few more times. Take it to the edge, and then use your straight edge. Go across the entire graph. Don't just connect the dots you make. Go across the entire graph. There we go. Okay. And lastly, okay, same as 18. We're going to have to add this time though, because this was a positive, so we subtracted. This time it's already a negative, so we're going to do the opposite and add. Whatever makes 0, right? I'm trying to make 0. So we have 0 there, and 2 times y will be 3x plus 6. And then divide everything by 2. So we have y equals, and we have 3 over 2, 3 over 2x, and then 6 divided by 2 is positive 3. Okay, so y-intercept, we have 3, slope is 3 over 2. Let's start at 3 and go up and to the right. So we got up 3, right 2, up 3, right 2. Okay. Do it several times and use a straight edge. Move that down and go across the entire graph. There we go. So that concludes our review for this test coming up tomorrow. Okay. I'm going to have you guys maybe do this review one more time, but just on your own. Now that you see how to do it, make sure you go back and know how to do it by yourself. Don't just write down the answers and say, now I'm done, because you have to do it on your own when you take the test. Okay, so good luck. Almost there.